Mastermind, Strategist for Hire. Written by Clouds, My Head in the Clouds, Not Coming Down. And read by Eleanor Elizabeth. Chapter 7. Face to Face. Mastermind looked back at Izuku in the full-length mirror of Jiren's office. He didn't want to get dressed in his villain outfit at home and potentially risk getting caught by his mom or the neighbours. If everything went well tonight, he would be finding his own base soon enough, but until then, Jiren's office would have to do. His villain outfit was practical, but still managed to look intimidating, or at least it would if Izuku wasn't so short. The black armoured pants were fitted but flexible, and were paired with a black armoured shirt made from the same material, but what tied the outfit together was the jacket. It was a dark green and had a hood that he pulled up, his hair just peeking out from underneath it. There were dozens of pockets that had smoke bombs, grenades, flashbangs, and of course, his knives. He also had knives strapped to each of his legs and a few hidden in the dark red boots for emergencies. After a few months of training with Toga, he was deadly with a knife, if not quite as good as his teacher. The last thing he put on was his mask. It was a solid black that covered his entire face below the nose. It didn't look like a standard gas mask, looking instead like a simple ski mask, but Jiren had assured him it would filter out any harmful gas attacks. Looking in the mirror, the effect was stunning. The knives alone would have been intimidating, but the hood partially shaded Izuku's face, so the only distinguishable feature were his bright green eyes, lit with a deadly sort of fire. He loved it. Jiren had arranged a face-to-face meetup now that Toga said he probably wouldn't die immediately as soon as he was attacked. The meeting was with a small gang that had territory in eastern Tokyo and were wanting to rob a casino. Izuku himself was still considered small-time, even if he was becoming more well-known, so Jiren said it would be a good chance for Mastermind to start showing his face, even if it was behind a mask. Looking pretty snazzy. Jiren was leaned against the doorframe, smoking his ever-present cigarette. I'd say knock him dead, but that'd be bad for business. Izuku rolled his eyes, again marvelling at how they stood out against his outfit. Let's go. The sooner we get this over with, the sooner I can pretend I'm not nervous. Jiren chuckled and grabbed his keys. You're such a smart kid. I keep forgetting how new to the game you are. Normally it takes years for a small fry like you to get to this point in their careers. Yeah, well, normally small fries don't make a living killing heroes. The drive to the warehouse was short, but maybe that was because there's not really any traffic at 2 o'clock in the morning. As they walked in, Jiren and Mastermind were met with a dozen armed guards surrounding a man almost as big as Fat Gum, who was obviously the head honcho. Izuku immediately started analysing, matching the people and quirks to what he saw in the research he'd done beforehand. The head honcho was sneering at him. Jiren, I said I wanted to meet Mastermind, not some kid wearing diapers. What kind of joke are you trying to pull here? Jiren just smiled. Izuku was fairly certain it was his default expression, but there was a possibility that he was genuinely amused by the situation. Yeah, I know he doesn't look like much, but I guarantee you he's the real deal. Apparently, you don't have to be told to be smart. Izuku's nervousness was slowly morphing into anger and determination. If there was anything he was used to from his life before villainy, it was jerks who thought it was their right to look down on him. The head honcho had gone on a rant about Jiren not taking him seriously and how he was powerful and blah blah blah. Izuku just sat down on the chair provided for him and spoke quietly, the determination in his voice and his eyes passing for confidence in his words. Takumi Fujito, age 42, quirk, spines. You convert the fat in your body into spines that can be detached. However, they have a tendency to bleed when you do that, so you avoid detaching them at all if possible. Family. You have a wife that you married 10 years ago and 4 kids, all under the age of 15. Your youngest just turned 6 last Wednesday. Congratulations, by the way. Weaknesses. Your family, the dependence of your quirk on your previous fat stores, and the risk of blood loss if forced to use it in the wrong way. You also have a severe allergy to shellfish. Did I get anything wrong? The room had gone completely silent, and Izuku smiled innocently beneath his mask as he looked directly at the head honcho, who gulped. So, Izuku said pleasantly, shall we begin? Detective Tsugauchi rubbed his eyes in frustration before taking another gulp of his coffee. The Mastermind case was rapidly turning from a minor headache into a massive migraine. The guy had been on the scene for less than 10 months, and he was already becoming one of the most dangerous villains the detective had ever been tasked with finding. He looked at the file again. filled with whatever neatly written plans they had managed to confiscate from villains, and a handful of blurry photographs pulled from security cameras at internet cafes. All the evidence pointed to one thing. Mastermind was a ghost. The police hadn't even known about his existence until months after his first murder, and it was the media who first caught on to the fact that all the recent hero deaths were connected. The heroes and the police hadn't even thought to check. Why would they? Each murder was committed by different people with different quirks, and there wasn't any signature to connect the deaths. It wasn't until Nezu noticed that the villains committing the crimes weren't smart enough to pull off the kind of heist they were doing that they began looking for a strategist rather than a serial killer. A strategist for hire. Looking at it now, it seemed obvious and simple. The murders were only possible because there was some genius pulling the strings from behind, making sure that the villains knew every possible weakness and how to exploit it. Nezu was anxious to catch Mastermind, mostly because he wanted an intellectual equal to play chess with, but Tsugauchi wanted to catch him because the more his influence grew, the more dangerous he became. The only comforting fact about the entire case was that Mastermind never agreed to in-person meetups, which limited his influence considerably. If the police and heroes could catch him before he got the courage to show his face, then they might be able to nip this in the bud. But Mastermind was starting to change his MO, and that made Tsugauchi nervous. For a long time, Mastermind had used internet cafes to communicate with the villains who hired him, which had been the only solid lead the police could get on the guy, as thin as it was. He had been caught on camera multiple times, but always kept his hood up and seemed to know where the cameras were placed, so they still had no idea what he really looked like. Tsugauchi and Sansa had gone to interview employees at the various cafes, but because they didn't know about Mastermind until several months after he became active, it had been too long for most to remember a random guy in a hoodie. The only thing they had to show for the interviews was one clerk who remembered a young man with green hair, but even he admitted it could have been black and the harsh fluorescent lights were just messing with his eyes. In short, they still had nothing. But they were tracking any suspicious activity at dozens of internet cafes in the city. And then he stopped using them. The crimes continued, accelerated even, but there was no physical sign of Mastermind anywhere. Tsugauchi and the rest of the police could only guess that he either bought some sort of untraceable tech or had figured out how to build it himself. Either way, the most solid lead they had gone cold, and they were back to where they started. Well, almost. At least they knew the guy existed now. A slight movement in the corner of his eye made Tsugauchi reflexively drop the file and reach for his gun. "Hey now, I didn't think I was being that quiet." Tsugauchi curbed his panic for long enough to recognize the long white scarf, tangled hair, and tired eyes of the hero in front of him. He sighed in relief. "Eraser! Sorry, I didn't hear you coming. He looked at the papers spread out on the floor. "Got lost in thought, I guess." Eraser grunted in response. "I guess I should apologize for sneaking up on you. Stealth is just kind of reflex for the underground heroes. It takes too much work to turn it off." "No." Tsugauchi shook his head. "It's not a problem. So, why are you here, Eraser? Normally you go straight to sleep after patrols." Eraserhead's expression, minute as the change was, turned grim. "I heard something concerning from one of my informants and needed to let you know as soon as possible." He glanced down at the file that was lying in disarray at their feet. "I have something else to add to your file." Tsugauchi perked up, half in excitement, half in dread. While he hoped Eraser was bringing good news, his grim attitude made that much less likely. "Please tell me that you have some sort of lead on how to find him." Even as he said it, he knew it was a useless hope. If Eraser was bringing something like that, he'd be smiling, as unhinged as the hero's smile was. As expected, Eraser shook his head and frowned. "Much worse. According to my contact, over the past week, Mastermind has met with the leaders of several minor gangs. In person." Eraser waited for a moment for his news to sink in, watching as the overworked cogs in Tsugauchi's brain finished turning into the correct positions. And when they did... Fuck! Hello, beautiful people. It is Ella, and I hope you are having a lovely day today. Oh shit. Shit's really amping up now. Oh, Tsugauchi's on the case. Yes, I know, really, it should be Tsugauchi, but I started saying Tsugauchi and I can't mentally undo it. So, it's Tsugauchi now. I'm sorry. But I hope you enjoyed another chapter, so be sure to like the video if you liked it, and to boost serotonin, mainly for me, but it could also boost serotonin for you, I just can't guarantee it. Be sure to comment down below. We can gush about the fic, we can gush about anything you like. I just love hearing from you all. It makes my day getting to chat with you and replying to messages. Sorry, I'm going a bit off, but I do really enjoy your comments. They make me happy a lot. But you could be sure to subscribe if you want to be notified when I make new videos. But until I see you again, be sure to practice some self-care. I've been telling you every day. Where's your self-care? Are you doing it? Have you drunk your water? Did you go to bed on time? Have you brushed your teeth? You better. Because yes, this is a threat. I will catch you guys laters.